So, if you haven't yet taken the time to familiarize yourself with the image on the cover of the order of service, you can find it on a link to the order of service. I encourage you to take a look at it because this image of the fool, as is the case in so many tarot decks, shows the fool stepping off the cliff, package in hand, accompanied by their dog, heading off on the beginning of their journey. And as we were preparing today's worship, it felt to me like the beginning, or the beginning steps of the beginning, of us moving into the next phase after the pandemic times. And I started reflecting about my experience here at the church, beginning again and again in new ways, in new roles, as my own life and my role in the congregation changed. And so I spent hours reflecting on that, writing. I've got this great piece here. And then I realized the fool steps off into the unknown. So I'm going to step out and tell you about something totally different. I was remembering this morning an experience that I had the last time I was on a street retreat with the Faithful Fools. Now, I've done dozens of these street retreats, led hundreds of people out into the streets. But this last November, as I was accompanying Meg McGuire on her first street retreat, as part of her work as intern here at the congregation and working with the Fools, I was scared. Was it going to be dangerous? Was I putting my family at risk in some way? There was so much that was unknown for me. And I realize now that these are the same kinds of questions faced by many people when they go out on their first or second or third or who knows how many street retreats. In this case, for me, the fear was mostly grounded in the reality of coronavirus. But I went out and I did it because I knew that that was going to be my commitment, to accompany Meg as she had her street retreat and I went off on my own experience. So I was walking along, and all of a sudden, this man dressed in a bright red tracksuit with shining white athletic shoes went running up the street. And I thought, is he running from someone? Is he chasing someone? What's going on? But I didn't see anybody. So I figured it must not be a chase. As I turned around the corner, all of a sudden my eye was caught across the street by a person standing next to somebody lying prone on the ground. And it came to my attention that this person had had a drug overdose. Their heart had stopped beating. Their brain was beginning to lose the oxygen it needed to function. Fortunately, my brain still had oxygen, and I started thinking, how can I get this person help? So I ran down to the safe sleeping site on Fulton Street, where people are allowed to set up tents to provide a little bit of space in the midst of the pandemic. And I found some of the people from Urban Alchemy who were working there. I said, do you have Narcan? Which I knew to be a drug that people could take to reverse the effects of opiate overdose. One of them did, and they came with me, and the other one called in the ambulance. And then, before my eyes, as several people arrived with Narcan, including the man who had run off in bright red, it was administered to the man on the ground, and within a couple of minutes, he arose and walked away. Now that is a real beginning. To die, to come back to life. He was stepping off the cliff into a new future. When I think of the fool is not stepping off the cliff alone. It's got the dog there. Perhaps that's the fool's community. It's got a suitcase or perhaps a knapsack on some of the images. And inside those cases are what the fool needs on their journey. In this case, I would hope that it would be this person's values. For when we are beginning our journey to have community, to have touch with our own values, what's important to us, can make a huge difference as we step into the unknown. Don't we all hope that this man, as he came back to life, was guided by his values, supported by his community? As we will be in this congregation, as we step forward into the next stage of our own lives, coming back together, as we think about how we're building our own world in a new and brighter form, as Selena was referring to. Guided by the faithful fools and their concrete touch with what human needs are, this is what will make the difference to us. I'd like to think a little bit about what some of those values are. Our first principle of the inherent worth and dignity of all people. Our seventh principle of the interconnected web of existence of which we are all a part. And now, as we're looking forward to this possibility of adding an eighth principle, one that addresses the systems of oppression, and specifically that of racism and systemic racism. As we connect ourselves with these values and walk into this next unknown period, we can create a world that is more beautiful, informed by the pain that we've experienced over the past year or witnessed others experiencing, or perhaps by choosing to preserve some of the things that worked well for us in the last year. I know for me, the slow streets, the closed portion of the roads on Golden Gate Park were essential to my and my family's well-being. At the same time, we know we need to address healthcare, policing, income disparities, protecting people's housing. And I know that people in this congregation are already taking some of those steps. And as we begin to step out into the unknown, I invite you to think about how we can do that, to reach out to our neighbors, to walk with our friends who are from the Asian American community, who are facing anti-Asian racism, to work for voter rights to preserve our democracy. We have great potential, guided by our values, to step forward and create not a normal, but a new normal.